Good morning. My name is Helen Foss, and on behalf of the First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware, I welcome you to our online worship service. Welcome to you all, no matter the hue of your skin or the origin of your ethnicity. Welcome wherever you are on your spiritual journey, and welcome whomever you love. You are welcome here. I'm also extending very special greetings to our sister UU congregation of Southern Delaware, whose members are joining our online service this morning. It warms my heart to know you're with us as I remember the work of our First Unitarian Growth Committee that they did to help start your congregation on your way. And I'm smiling as I remember our church taking a field trip one Sunday, years ago now, to sing at one of your services. We are delighted to have you officially join us this morning, and welcome longtime First Unitarian member, Reverend Paula Majorano, who is currently serving as interim minister at UUSD. Welcome all to our service as we mark Earth Day, as we make the connection of this glorious spring day with our passion for nature turns running high, and we connect with one of our core principles of our faith, the seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. After our long winter, our long COVID isolation, we are all ready to say with great gusto, Alleluia, to welcome the forsythia, celebrate the rebirthing of all forms of life, to reflect on our place in nature and in the universe, our interdependent web of all existence. If you are new to First Unitarian, I invite you to check out our website, firstuuwilm.org, to learn more about us and to sign up for our email newsletter. Our worship leader this morning is Unitarian Universalist Minister Reverend Tracey Robinson Harris, our temporary minister while Reverend Pamela Watt is away caring for her parents. This Earth Day service, Reverend Tracey will be asking us to consider what we do now as we explore the demands of climate justice. I am ready to hear her thoughts. And now, let us prepare our hearts and minds for worship.
our call to worship. Spring is past the point of being on the verge. The green shoots will not wilt, the buds will not shiver. The faint and increasing green on tree branches will find the sun that draws it out. Maybe now, the winter tension that lingers in us will melt. Maybe now, warmth. Maybe now, new life. Maybe now, hope. Because this change of season insists on it. Now and here, welcome spring.
If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to join me by lighting it. These words are by Mark Causey. We light this chalice, spark of the origin of creation, to remind us that we are all on this planet, the furred, the feathered, the finned, and the scaled, along with us featherless bipeds. We are all made of the same star stuff and all share a common destiny. We all share the same hopes of a life free from harm and suffering, and the same aspirations of happiness, love, and flourishing, being able to express our own unique natures and capacities as best we may. We are just that many diverse perspectives from which the whole is seen and experienced. We are inextricably intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent, and it is good. Blessed be. Please join me now in affirming our mission. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, fights injustice, and transforms the world through loving action.
Hi, everyone. It is great to be here with you. I am so happy that spring is here. Trees are budding and some plants are starting to bloom. It is even getting warm enough to start gardening. Do you know that what we plant in our gardens can have a big impact on the environment? Have you ever heard anyone mention native plants? Native plants go naturally in a specific area. Invasive and non native plants are not from the area originally. Invasive plants invade an area, they take up space and use up resources that native plants need. Invasive and native plants don't provide food and shelter for animals and insects that are also native to the area. That is harmful to the environment. When we plant native plants, they provide food and shelter for animals and insects. Bees, hummingbirds, rabbits, and butterflies are just some of the animals that rely on native plants. Native plants also don't need as much care as invasive and non native plants. Native plants can grow without needing extra water or special additives in the soil. You can help our environment just by planting some native flowers. Did you know that since 2006, one third of all the bee colonies have vanished? We need those bees to help grow the foods we eat. We can all help the bees, our food supply, and the environment if we plant some native flowers in our yards and at First Unitarian Church. We need those bees to help grow the foods we eat. We can all help the bees, our food supply, and the environment if we plant some native flowers in our yards and here at church. At First Unitarian Church, we are trying to help the environment by adding some native plant gardens. You know, all this talk of gardening, native plants, and flowers reminds me of a story I think you would enjoy called One Flower in a Field. Once upon a time, there was a field that sometimes was really dry. It had tall grasses and thistle. There were high places and low places, and rocks scattered around, and a stream that passed alongside. And scattered around here and there and everywhere were flowers. Buttercups and Joe Pyeweed, coneflowers and black-eyed Susans, all kinds of bright, beautiful flowers growing up out of the grass. Now, you may ask, how could these flowers grow when the field was so dry? The answer is that next to each flower was a hole in the ground, and in each hole lived an animal whose job it was to tend that flower. Most were rabbits, but there were chipmunks and field mice and even a groundhog or two. Every morning, each animal would come out of its hole, hop or scurry down to the stream, and use a leaf to scoop up some water. Then they would each carry their leaf back and water their flower. In a little gully in this field, next to a tall sunflower, lived a rabbit. Every day she went down to the stream to get some water for her sunflower. She loved that flower. It was tall and bright, strong and healthy, and she took very good care of it. One afternoon, the rabbit decided to hop up to the top of a little hill along her gully. When she got to the top, she saw something she had never seen before. Down a ways, she saw a flower. It might have been a daisy, but it was hard to tell. This flower looked in bad shape. Now, why had she never noticed that flower before? It's not that big a mystery. She had just never climbed that particular hill to look in that particular direction. Of course, she knew the field was full of flowers. She may have heard some were not doing quite as well as her sunflower, but she'd never actually seen one that looked as bad as this. She hopped down the hill to take a closer look, and then she began to understand. This flower needed water. Its stem was bent. Its petals were wilting in the heat. The ground around it was parched and dry. The rabbit felt bad for that flower. She felt bad that a flower could be so neglected. And then she did nothing. Even though the flower looked terrible, it was just one flower in a field after all. The field had plenty of other flowers that were doing just fine. The rabbit had enough work to do watering her own flower. So she went home and got on with her business, getting up every morning, going to the stream, watering her sunflower, and hopping around all afternoon. But the other flower didn't go away. At least once a day, the rabbit couldn't help but hop up to the top of the hill and take a quick look. Every day, the other flower looked a little worse. It started to get to her. The rabbit thought about that flower at night while she was trying to sleep. She thought about it in the morning when she hopped to the stream for water. She couldn't even enjoy her own flowers so much, knowing the other flower was wilting more and more each day. Now, you may wonder, why didn't that rabbit just go over and water the flower? After all, it was not far away, just on the other side of the hill. The stream had plenty of water, and the rabbit had plenty of time. Well, that's a good question. The rabbit thought about it all the time. She'd think about making an extra trip to the stream to get some water for that flower. But then she'd think, well, you just don't march into someone's front yard and water their flower without asking, do you? What if that flower is someone else's to water? They might yell at me or something. Or she'd think, what if the flower likes being dried up and droopy? That's possible, isn't it? Or she'd think, aren't there other animals who are supposed to go around and help out flowers whose animals don't or can't water them? I should leave it to them, right? With all these questions swirling around in her head, the rabbit went about her business, taking care of her sunflower every day and trying not to think about the other flower. But it kept bothering her, especially at night. It was kind of irritating, actually. Sometimes she wished the flower would just get better by itself. But every time she sneaked a peek, there it was, looking more dry, more wilted, and more droopy. Finally, the rabbit could not stand it any longer. One morning, hopping from the stream with her leaf full of water for her sunflower, she suddenly thought, it's just not right. Flowers are not supposed to wilt like that. Flowers should be healthy and colorful and bright and beautiful. And she found herself hopping over the hill toward the other flower. At the top of the hill, the rabbit got a bit nervous. Her nose twitched as she sniffed the air. It might be dangerous over there. She shouldn't be watering other people's flowers. But then she said, "It's just not right," and kept going over the hill and down the other side. The rabbit hopped close to the dry flower, closer than she'd been before. Suddenly, a groundhog suddenly popped out of a hole in the ground. The groundhog yelled, "Hey, what are you doing?" "I'm going to water this flower," the rabbit said. "It's too dry, and if I don't water it, it will die." The groundhog said, "What business is it of yours whether this flower dies? This is my flower. I'll take care of it how I want. Go home. Take care of your own flower." But the rabbit answered, "I'm sorry, but I tried that. Flowers are supposed to be bright and beautiful, not wilting and droopy. So I'm going to water this flower." She watered that dry, wilted, drooping daisy right in front of the groundhog, though he fussed and mumbled and gave her mean looks. And she turned around and hopped back over the hill. The next day she came back with a leaf full of water and watered it again. And the day after that, she watered it again. And then another day, and another, and another. The groundhog continued to fuss and grumble and mumble and give the rabbit mean looks. But the flowers started to look better. First, the petals perked up. Then the stem began to stand straight up. Then its leaves started to fill out and get bigger. The flower even grew a little taller. Strangely enough, as this flower got brighter and healthier and taller and more beautiful, so did the rabbit's own flower. And so did every other flower. All the flowers in the field, even ones she never watered, flowers she had never even noticed before. The whole field began to brighten as the colors of every flower became more vivid and the flowers stretched taller. It was almost as if there was more water everywhere. How could that be? Were other rabbits and groundhogs and field mice and even chipmunks sneaking around and watering other animals' flowers too? Or was it because when someone waters one wilting flower somewhere, all flowers everywhere grow a little brighter? Who knows? Maybe we'll just have to try it and see. I wonder if it was right for the rabbit to help the flower that needed water. I wonder why all the flowers got brighter in the field. I wonder how you can help our environment become brighter, healthier, and more beautiful.
Please join in the spirit of meditation. These words are from Billy Collins. His poem is entitled Looking West. Just beyond the flower garden at the edge of the lawn, the curvature of the earth begins. Sloping down from there over the length of the country and the smooth surface of the Pacific, before it continues across the convex rice fields of Asia and rising inclines over Europe and the bulging boat-dotted waters of the Atlantic, finally reaching the other side of the house, where it comes up behind a yellow grove of forsythia near a dilapidated picnic table. Then passes unerringly under the spot where I am standing, hands in my pockets, feet planted firmly on the ground. And now join together in this time of shared silence. Let us break the silence that we have shared with the names of those whom we hold in our hearts in care and concern on this day. Please write them in the chat so that we may together hold all those beloveds. For all those whose names have been shared, for all those whose names we hold in silence, may they find peace and healing. As we lift them up with care and concern for their well-being. Amen. In an official memorial ceremony in August of 2019, Iceland mourned the loss of one of its famous glaciers, Okkjafjall, the formerly massive body of ice, referred to as OK Glacier, lost its glacier status in 2014 after melting down to 0.386 square miles, 6.6% of its original 5.8 square miles. Global warming has reduced OK Glacier to dead ice. It has stopped moving and melted down into a moraine, an accumulation of clay, silt, sand, and gravel. By the year 2200, all 400 of Iceland's glaciers will likely have met this same fate. The memorial ceremony for OK included unveiling a plaque inscribed with words by Icelandic author and poet Andri Snær Magnusson, a letter to the future. OK is the first Icelandic glacier to lose its status as a glacier. In the next 200 years, all our glaciers are expected to follow the same path. This monument is to acknowledge that we know what is happening and what needs to be done. Only you know if we did it. Dated August 2019, 415 parts per million CO2. In the midst of the global climate strike in 2019, I discovered Extinction Rebellion. Extinction Rebellion is a decentralized, international, and nonpartisan movement using nonviolent direct action and civil disobedience to persuade governments to act justly on the climate and ecological emergency. Their purpose is to tell the truth, to act now, and to go beyond politics. In their handbook, "This is not a drill," are these words: "We refuse to bequeath a dying planet to future generations by failing to act now. We act in peace, with ferocious love of these lands in our hearts. We act on behalf of life." Two weeks ago, world leaders gathered virtually to discuss international debt architecture. Antigua's Prime Minister Gaston Brown, who is also the chairperson of the Alliance of Small Island States, told his colleagues this: "The territories of small island developing states could disappear within our lifetimes due to rising sea levels." He continued, "This is unacceptable while the problem is within our power to fix." Prime Minister Brown pleaded for help for countries like Antigua and Barbuda as the coming hurricane season brings added risk for the spread of COVID-19 and as economic hardships are worsening. Prime Minister Brown called on his colleagues to recognize the importance of vulnerability as a criterion for debt relief, so that small island states can have the physical space to combat the virus, to protect the vulnerable, and to secure a green and inclusive recovery. For decades, leaders of small island states have called out the distressing complacency of world leaders toward the human suffering exacted by climate change. As one of Chairman Brown's predecessors said, the past decades have affirmed we are capable of inflicting terrible harm on creation. But it is not too late to reclaim our responsibility to be good stewards of the land, sea, and yes, each other. Calling out distressing complacency. Calling out the exercise of the privilege of disbelief. Calling out the exercise of the privilege of redefining. Calling out the privilege that even when we look, we do not see. When your nation is disappearing from the face of the earth, when your home, your homeland is or soon will be underwater, the word urgent is woefully inadequate. It is woefully inadequate when your legacy may be a story of destruction, a story of survival, a story of sweet memories of a homeland that is nowhere to be found. Climate change occurs on a scale too vast to see with the naked eye. What we see are its effects. As with OK Glacier, as with small island states like Antigua, as with the cherry blossoms in Kyoto, Japan, blossoms that are peaking earlier this year than at any time since records began being kept in 812 AD. A year ago, to our surprise, it seemed that the planet took a deep breath even as we were holding ours. In the quiet created as human activity halted, many people reported hearing birds sing. And across the world, air pollution levels dropped dramatically. In some places in India, the Himalayas were visible again as they had not been for decades. Regarding air pollution and visibility, here are a few bits of data. A few relevant data points. At the outset of the pandemic, New Delhi recorded a 60% drop in fine particulate matter in the environment. Seoul registered a 54% drop, and in China's Wuhan, the drop came to 44%. 60%. 54%, 44% drops from 2019 levels. Returning to normal means drowning out the birds and blurring out the mountains and accepting 8.7 million air pollution deaths a year. We have lived our lives by the assumption that what was good for us would be good for the world, writes Wendell We have been wrong. We must change our lives so that it will be possible to live by the contrary assumption that what is good for the world will be good for us. And that requires that we make an effort to know the world and to learn what is good for it. I'd like you now to meet a fabulous farmer and to learn a little bit about what is good for this part of the world.
Good morning. My name is Pam Finkelman, and I'm on the board of the Delaware Nature Society. I'm delighted to introduce you to Michelle Wales, our fabulous farmer. Michelle is the manager of Coverdale Farm Preserve. I'm sorry I can't be with Michelle at the beautiful farm today. The farm is located about 2 miles west of the turnoff at Winterthur Museum, but we have her on Zoom. She will answer a couple of questions for us about her passion, which also happens to be her vocation. Hi, Michelle. Can you explain regenerative agriculture to us, please?
Good morning, Pam, and thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about my favorite subject, although you've asked quite a challenging question for the morning, but I'm going to do my best. Regenerative agriculture is an intense systems-based approach grounded in ecological thinking. So the farm is an ecosystem, and it works with nature, not against it. Nature is our foundation and our partner. And it takes a restorative approach to soil, habitat, air, water, animals, and people. We respect and repair. We do not degrade and destroy. And it is not a one-size-fits-all method. It is a customized, place-based approach where the land leads. The land tells us what it should have done to it, as opposed to what we want to do on it. So although it's a very customizable approach, it is a global methodology that is adopted throughout the world. And there are a certain number of pillars in the practice that you would find consistently along all the regenerative systems. And I just have a few that I wanted to share that hopefully will bring to light some of the understanding of regenerative ag. One is to minimize soil disturbance. So we take a strong approach to building soil health both above and below ground. We also look to maximize crop diversity and farm biodiversity. We want to keep the soil covered all year round, never exposing it to erosion by wind and water. And we also look to keep living root systems all year round, everywhere. That's an essential piece to this puzzle. We want to integrate livestock and employ a highly managed grazing system. Nature does not separate animal and plant interaction. So that's really a critical piece as well. And we also eliminate the use of synthetic chemicals. So we work with nature to both fertilize and provide protection against pests. So as farmers, our ecological literacy is as critical to our toolbox as our livestock and vegetable literacy. So that's how I sum it up.
Thank you. Can you give us a preview of the produce market this summer at Coverdale?
I sure can. We're so excited to have this beautiful new market, on-farm market, a proper market where anyone is welcome to come and share in the bounty of the farm. So we are producing our own eggs, pastured eggs, our large variety of vegetables that come right out of our field and go directly into our market. But we're also this year expanding and looking at our favorite local and regional partners who are growing things we're not growing, or producing, taking those raw products and creating value added products such as pickled vegetables or breads and cheeses that make the market a more full diet opportunity when you come to shop. And one of the fun things that we're trying this year is providing greater flexibility to our community supported agriculture program. So we're introducing a market card. It's called the Golden Tomato Program. And with this market card, you invest upfront in a sum of money to help us operate the farm. And with that, you can come and shop over the 32 weeks that the market is open with your Golden Tomato card, and you get to select what you want, when you can come, and how much every time. And it is not limited to just the vegetables that are grown here at the farm. It's to anything that you find in the market, which also includes kitchen tools and cookbooks. So our market is really designed to enhance your eating and cooking experience. And we will look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. And finally, for people who plan to give to the Delaware Nature Society, can you tell us how their donations might be put to work at Coverdale?
So we always greatly appreciate the support that the community gives to our farm, and we take those donations very seriously, and we apply them directly into the principles that I spoke to a little bit earlier. But some of those things expressly for the farm allow us to expand our intensive organic vegetable production program. That means both acreage and building that soil health. It also helps continue our research. So we do soil tests. We are working with an ornithologist to study the birds that live on the farm. So it helps us expand to start to study insects and plants and mammals and reptiles and amphibians. So that research program is also an important part of our farm. It helps us restore the acreage, and there's a substantial amount of acreage that has been conventionally farmed for decades. So we are working on restoring the health of that soil and building it out into diversified pastures so that we can eventually support a more robust livestock program. And the biggest piece that I'm very excited about is the conservation program. So we're not just growing food and raising animals, we're also restoring and rebuilding the woodlands that surround the farms, employing larger hedgerow systems so that they provide habitat for wildlife. We are looking to install insectary buffers, pollinator plantings throughout the farm that are critical for food production, and also planting a lot of trees. So we have a huge conservation effort that is part of our farm effort to build a more robust farm ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for giving us a preview of summer at Coverdale. We hope the farm can soon be open to visitors, because I know many of us, all of us, would like to come and see what you're doing. It's very exciting.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Pam. Thank you for showing all of us what it looks like to make an effort to know the world and to learn what is good for it. As a young activist, one of the things I learned, and one of the things I still try to hold to, is that bumper sticker slogan, think globally and act locally. For me, for a very long time, what was local had names like the James River and the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Now, for me in Massachusetts, it's Mount Monadnock and Watauga and Wachusett. As I lived and learned local, I also learned who I could go to, who to count on to map out how things could be different, who could help me understand what I could do. And in finding that thing, that action, no matter how small it might feel, I also found hope. Action is where hope resides. Whether it's action with Extinction Rebellion, whether it's action in support of and engaging with Coverdale Farm Preserve. I'm grateful that Coverdale and Michelle have been with us this morning, embodying action where hope resides. Finally, these words. As Robin Wall Kimmerer said in her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, to love a place is not enough. We must find ways to heal it.
Usually, the second Sunday stewardship moment focuses on a special offering. This month, it's featuring the Delaware Nature Society. First Unitarian member Pam Finkelman is a longtime board member on the Delaware Nature Society, and she introduced you to Michelle Wales and Coverdale Farms and to some of the Delaware Nature Society work earlier this morning in the midst of Reverend Tracey's sermon. Here is Pam again to summarize.
The Delaware Nature Society manages 4 sites statewide, including the DuPont Environmental Education Center, located in First UU church member Russell Peterson's Wildlife Refuge on the riverfront. Here, young people, many who live in the city, can connect with nature, and as one young volunteer said, open their eyes to possibilities and show them things outside their comfort zone. I encourage you to support the Delaware Nature Society as we fight back with science against the devastation of climate change, advocate for clean water, protect our open spaces and woodlands, advance regenerative agriculture, and connect more and more people with the natural world. On behalf of thousands of members, volunteers, supporters, and staff, I thank you.
Thank you, Pam, for sharing with us the work of the Delaware Nature Society. It's easy to connect this work with today's Earth Day theme, and then with one of our core UU principles, the 7th, respecting the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. As a longtime supporter of the Delaware Nature Society, I loved hearing how these programs were working with nature, recognizing ecosystems, implementing conservation, and on and on. There are 3 ways to make your contribution to the Delaware Nature Society this morning. In each case, please see the instructions on the right of your screen. Send a check to the church with Sunday offering on the memo line. Log on to our website with the donation page and click on Sunday Morning Collection, or use your smartphone's Give Plus app and select Sunday Morning Collection. Please join me now in dedicating our offering to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action. We dedicate our lives and these our offerings.
There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. There are more waters rising, they will find their way to me. There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. There are more fires burning, this I know, this I know. There are more fires burning, this I know. There are more fires burning, they will find their way to me. There are more fires burning, this I know, this I know. There are more fires burning, this I know.
Doom,
Hey, hey, oh, hey, oh.
daya doom,
Hey, hey, oh, hey.
daya doom,
Hey, hey, oh, hey.
daya doom,
Hey, hey, oh, hey.
daya doom,
Mountains falling, this I know, this I know. There are more mountains falling, this I know.
this I know.
There are more mountains falling, they will find their way to me. There are more mountains falling, this I know, this I know. There are more mountains falling, this I know. I will wade through the waters, this I know, this I know. I will wade through the waters, this I know. I will wade through the waters when they find their way to me. We will wade through the waters, this I know, this I know.
We will wade through the waters, this I know.
I will walk through the fire, this I know, this I know. I will walk through the fire, this I know. I will walk through the fire when they find their way to me. I will walk through the fire, this I know, this I know. I will walk through the fire, this I know.
I will rebuild the mountains, this I know, this I know. I will rebuild the mountains, this I know.
I will rebuild the mountains when they find their way to me.
I will rebuild the mountains, this I know, this I know. I will rebuild the mountains, this I know.
These are the words of Thich Nhat Hanh. Water flows from high in the mountains. Water runs deep in the earth. Miraculously, water comes to us and sustains us all. Water flows over these hands. May we use them skillfully to preserve our precious planet.
We extinguish our chalice now with the words of UU Minister Reverend Diana Smith. As we go forth from this sacred space, may we celebrate Earth and our shared lives. May we recognize our connections to all that is in and on Earth. May we truly and deeply value the inherent worth of all in this awesome, interconnected web of existence. May we commit ourselves to a new way, and may we hold our commitments and each other gently but firmly. Blessed be, and amen.
know.